Okay, let's rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so let's approve the agenda, please. With just one modification, I'm going to move the item 7.5.1 to just after 7.3.1 to give the folks in the audience that wish to speak about the Measure J, I mean not Measure J, excuse me, 7-11 committee discussions, time to talk about it, and then if they need to, they can go home. And we can continue with our business. So,
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Okay, let's approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 15th.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Next, we have our student representative, Megan.
Alright, so this week we are very busy at Nordoff. This Friday we will have our spring rally and our class Olympics. Students from all grade levels will compete in a variety of competitions, and we will recognize our spring sports teams. Next week, juniors will take part in the CASP testing starting each day with a delicious breakfast. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the entire school will participate in community time. This will consist of an inner beauty pageant for a few seniors. Then freshmen and sophomores will go to class, juniors will test, and seniors will participate in senior experience. Seniors will get a barbecue, pancake breakfast, take the panoramic picture, and go to elementary schools and participate in a career fair put on by the Rotary. Miners Oaks. On Tuesday, April 12th, the 5th graders went to the Ventura River for a watershed field trip. Wednesday, April 13th, the 5th graders went to Nordoff to run the mile. And April 20th through the 22nd, the 6th graders will go to their Catalina trip. Matilla, a parent committee is starting to plan the promotion dance, which will take place on June 10th from 7 to 9 p.m. Our students will have an outstanding opportunity to strengthen their skills and receive additional support at Math Help. Sessions are held after school from 2:30 to 3:30 each Monday and Thursday, taught by certified mathematician teachers and open to all Matilla students. Two of our very own Matilla students entered the 5th annual Young Filmmakers competition last month and received merit awards. 7th grader Trey Fontaine submitted his film title, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this, Joria versus Godzilla, and 8th grader Dylan Petrucci submitted his video, Fragmented Day. Submissions throughout the Ojai Valley were viewed on Sunday, April 3rd, and enjoyed by all who attended. On April 28th, Ojai Unified School District's elementary schools will have a music recital for all students currently participating in a music ensemble at their school. The recital will be at the auditorium at Matilla Junior High. Auditions will be during their class time beginning April 18th. This is an excellent performance opportunity. Thank you to all the parents that made this year's Jogathon a success. Our staff so appreciates all of you and you who put into these fundraising events. Thank you, Miramonte families, for supporting our school fundraisers. Our PTO budget for this year is close to $50,000 for all our programs and support personnel that parent funds.
Thank you. I know you have homework for some sort of practice, right?
Thank you for having
A
me.
busy young lady. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we have public comments. We've got quite a few. How many of you who gave me public comment sheets are here to speak about the 7-11 committee discussion? If you are, would you like to, you have a choice of speaking now or waiting until we get to that agenda item?
Wait.
How many want to wait? Or I should say, how many want to speak right this minute? If you're not speaking, yeah, okay. All right, so the first person to speak will be Danika Forrester.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, there's no microphone. Do I stand here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Obviously, my comments are a result of my experience through this 7-11 process. But for those who don't know me, my name is Danika Forrester. I'm a parent of Miners Oaks and Matilaha students, and I am as guilty as many for many years of absence and passive participation in important community processes such as these board meetings and the 7-11 committee meetings. Notwithstanding, I'm very grateful for my privilege to allow me the time and energy and motivation to get finally engaged once that my own kid's school was threatened. I am very relieved that we have won a battle, and I am also very well aware that the campaign is far from over. I'm mostly heartened and encouraged by the positive community building results that this crisis has catalyzed. I, for one, learned a lot and met a lot of new people whom I admire greatly. I truly look forward to collaborating with many more in the future for the sake of our schools, our community, our kids, and our future. Tonight, I just want to share with you a small piece of really positive news, which is yesterday, the Ojai Rotary granted the Miners Oaks PTA close to $2,500 for the purchase of a set of interpretation devices. They may have been very conspicuous. You may have seen them in use on the night of March 17th when the 7-11 committee had a public forum. That night, some 40 non-English speaking audience members, parents of our district's children, perhaps for the first time ever, were able to fully participate in a formal Ojai Unified School District meeting. Thanks to the devices, the professional interpreter that the district hired, and of course Javier Ramirez's effort in interpreting as well. So I'm delighted that this request has come through. Yet, as I discussed with Andy this morning, the simple addition of more technology to this equation is not going to solve our district's communication challenges. No one would deny that our district and our schools can and should do a better job communicating with all its stakeholders. Parents, the community, Spanish and English speaking alike. I urge the board to prioritize a review of the district's communication vision, strategy, and practices to affirm that we are doing the best we can to be as effective and as inclusive as possible. As our 7-11 process has revealed to us, there is so much positive interest, energy, concern, and goodwill within our community for our schools. With the acquisition of these new interpreting devices, I urge the board and district to take a leadership role in opening a conversation about how to be more inclusive in our communications, especially with our non-English speaking members. Thank you.
Any questions for Annika from the board? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so Amy, did you want to speak now?
Oh, that would be great.
Okay. You said you did.
Thank you. I don't have anything prepared. I also just wanted to speak to the findings I came on Thursday of the 7-11 committee. Not to be confused with 9/11. Current was, sorry. That's current.
We got that.
But I just wanted to say mostly what I would like to do, instead of waxing on about how amazing our school is, which I do believe it is, or how wonderful my students are and our parents that I love so much. I really am sad that Kevin's not here, because I'm here to extend an invitation to please visit our school, because I think that is a piece that is missing, that people do not come to our school. I think people have made judgments about our school in the past. Sitting Thursday night, I pride myself in not being very easily offended, and sitting here Thursday night, there are comments that I just keep saying, I can't believe that I just heard that being said, and the comment specifically on Thursday from one of the members was, after hearing the parents speak at one of the meetings, I realized that Miners Oaks, this is a quote, that Miners Oaks was worthwhile. And I just continue to say, have you been to our campus? Have you visited our classrooms? Have you seen us? So without saying how wonderful it is, every one of you, please come to Miners Oaks School and see us and meet our parents. You'll hear how wonderful they are and what they have to say, but just please come visit. I think that's a big piece that's missing. So, thank you.
Okay, and Dimitri, is Dimitri here?
Yes.
Oh, did you want to speak now? Because you have,
I might as well.
okay, do you have a specific thing you want to speak about yourselves?
maybe I can speak more once I was waiting for this. I wanted to wait for this, but I can speak now. As far as action, today I ran into Ray Amy, the grant writer, and spoke to her about the 7-Eleven community and what's been happening. And she's going to do some research. I sent her a link to a grant that would be, it covers all kinds of things, including research, teacher development, career technology, and it's up to the district to choose which topic to go for. But she said she'd do some research and find research grants on construction help and things like that. I don't know if you all know her resume, but she writes multi-million-dollar grants in school districts. And I have enlisted her a couple of times to write grants for the school district. So that is my offering as far as helping, because all of us on the committee realize that our job is not over at all. So on behalf of Peachtree Theater Company, I'm going to continue to be working and continue to advocate with the city to come to some collaboration, especially as far as grants. I went to a meeting last night, well, not a meeting, but an interview. They're building a committee for the Libby Bowl. And one of the things I really, really stressed is that it has to be used for educational purposes, for vocational purposes, and also in conjunction with the Channel 10. Again, vocational, just being able to use and utilize what we have and make the most out of it and do the best we can to keep these schools open, because, as I said before, that's what we haven't done yet. We have to really just scrape the barrel before any school is considered being closed again. So you've got my help as much as I possibly can.
Does anybody have any questions for Dimitri? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Oh, and one other thing. I did hear that the OUS had approached the school district about space. That's one of the things that we did discuss, and I hope that that could happen, because they're going to lose their space. And one of the things that's happened over these years is that nonprofits have lost their space for whatever reason, and then those vital educational programs go with it. So I hope that can work out. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who feels they need to speak now? Yes, did you give me a, you did, okay.
Hello, my name is Susie Taylor, and as many of us will say tonight, thank you for your time serving in our community. It appears to me that you have several issues to address, but please do not blur the lines of responsible spending and Measure J funding with attendance issues at our district schools. We have experienced over a number of many years an exit of students, primarily Caucasian, from Miners Oaks School. We need to ask ourselves, why is this happening? I believe this district has done little to encourage voluntary retention. And while Proposition 209 protects a parent's right to choose, it does not negate this district's responsibility to encourage voluntary retention at lower attended and consequently lower performing schools. I refer to Missouri versus Jenkins 1995. Magnet schools have an advantage of encouraging voluntary movement of students in a pattern that aids in desegregation. I encourage you to dig deeper into this issue. And as a local government institution, you have the authority to devise and implement remedies to address the issues of segregation. Miners Oaks Elementary School is already functioning on so many levels as a magnet school, but clearly many are not aware of this, including this board. I believe an aggressive marketing plan is in order, and we need to address the demographic, cultural, and socioeconomic issues that also exist. Miners Oaks Elementary School is truly the hub of that community. I encourage you to empower your administration to work closely with on-site administrators, teachers, local partnerships, and parents to market the programs that are already in place at Miners Oaks Elementary and brand Miners Oaks Elementary School as our first resilient school. I am confident that once this information is disseminated amongst our community, we will see a change in both general attendance at our district as a whole and ethnic balance amongst our schools. As Andy Cantwell has stated, for the first time in a decade, we have 2 consecutive years projected to have budget surpluses with no furlough days. I too do not believe this is the correct time to support a school closure. I believe we should take this opportunity to improve on what we already have in place, as we are well on our way at Miners Oaks. Thank you.
Any questions for Susie?
I do have a question. You said there were things that we weren't aware of. I wonder what you think we're not aware of, just so we can be aware.
Yeah, just last week when we were having the discussion with the 7-Eleven committee, I thought it was very interesting when David White brought up all the things that we were doing with the garden program, with the composting program, that the landscape becoming the learnscape. It seemed to be somewhat foreign to several of the people on the board, and I thought it was worth noting that we are already essentially qualified as a magnet school or a resilient school, whatever name you want to use. We're just not marketed as that. So I think a lot of the parents, when they're making their choice, which inter-district school they're going to transfer to, they're just uneducated on what we actually offer. And it really comes down to marketing. You know, whether it's through social media or through the district's website, you know, each school is unique. And I just don't think that what we're offering is truly out there to our community.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who must speak now? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Mark Philippine.
Yes. No, I don't know who you are.
Thank you. That's right. Well, again, I want to thank you all for your time and the service that you give to us as teachers and our students in the community. I also, was here last Thursday hearing the 7-Eleven committee give you their information, and I also want to say that I would like you to, as you're considering their recommendation, I would like to also say that I don't think this is the time to close the school. And the points that I would like you to consider as you're discussing this issue is that I think that when you are addressing teachers' needs, and I'm so appreciative, and I know all teachers are so appreciative of the concerns that we've heard both from 7-Eleven committee members and yourselves in terms of teachers' salaries and our working conditions. We're so appreciative of that, but I wonder what response you would get, or the 7-Eleven committee would have gotten, if the question to teachers had been, would you be in favor of closing your school in order to have fewer combination classes and more collaboration, and possibly in the future an increase in teacher salary? I would like to know what that response would have been if that question had been asked to us. Also, the second point I'd like you to consider is that it's so tough financially, you know, and it's been that way for so long, and I'm glad it's been better recently. And you know, we've got a lot of company, right? Many school districts are facing some of the issues we have. And while bigger schools are more cost effective, I have never heard or read that there are any inherent educational advantages in having a bigger school. So, in fact, many families, I think, would say, you know, we would like the smaller school size, you know, that they value that. So I don't think there's any educational value in having a bigger school. And finally, I just want to say to the board that demographics do matter. Anyone who's been in education knows that demographics matter, and whether you're talking, they matter from test scores all the way to fundraising at a school. And I really know that our community and our school district would choose to pay extra attention to the most vulnerable students in our community. So even though I know it's hard that knowing Measure J funds won't cover all of the infrastructure repair that we need, I sort of like to think of it in a different slant. I think we were fortunate to pass the bond measure. It may not have passed. And so I like to think of, well, we have $35 million, is that correct? Did I say? We have $35 million to spend. If we all just kind of come together, as I know we can, maybe we can get to the hard work of spending it and doing what we can and keeping all of our schools open. Thank you.
No questions for Martha? I just asked the question. Okay, so now we're going to go to Resolution 7.1.1. This is in recognition of Teacher Appreciation Week, which is May 2 through 6, and Day of the Teacher, May 18th. Do I have?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, and this, just so you guys know, it's set aside this Day of the Teacher. It says Tuesday, May 11th, and encourages suitable commemorative exercises directing attention to teachers and the teaching profession. And we, the Ohio Unified School District, set aside the first full week of May to further recognize teachers, because we wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you as a teacher. I know how hard you work. Appreciate it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Whew, all right. Sorry, I didn't know.
It's okay. I was a teacher too. Just too long.
Okay, this is item 7.1.2. This is resolution in recognition of Classified School Employee Week. And that's May 15th to the 21st. And this is also an action item.
I'll move to approve.
All right. Discussion, and this is, as you know, the classified employees are our secretaries, our custodians, our groundskeepers, everybody who does all the stuff that we really don't want to do and that we need so desperately to have done. So thank you to our classified employees. So all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, excellent. All right, now we're going to move on to 7.3.1, and this is Nordhoff wishes to reinstate foreign language course, French. Yes. Just so you guys know, I was a French literature minor in college, art major, French literature minor, and I'm really excited that this is happening. So, you guys have the floor.
Well, here we go, full house. Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it's certainly a pleasure to be here under these circumstances where I can request that we reinstate something that we have lost. That hasn't happened too often. So it's been a 10-year absence, and the timing is really right for us. So we have a retirement in Spanish. One of our two Spanish foreign language teachers will be leaving us at the end of this year. So that gave us the chance, the space to think about our foreign language program in general. And I always knew in the back of my mind that Lisa Porto was a French teacher, and she never failed to remind me every now and then. And I appreciate that. And as we have gotten smaller over the years, I think that one foreign language program communicates the size of the school is actually much smaller than we are. And so the opportunity to bring it back, I think, really communicates more of the truth about what Nordhoff is in terms of our size and what we can offer. We're really fortunate not only that somebody on our campus speaks French, somebody on our campus has a master's in French literature, somebody on our campus has actually taught French, but they're credentialed in French, and so we just really lucked out. And having somebody like Lisa Porto, who is multiple credentialed, really is incredibly valuable, and as we get smaller, that's really valuable to have these versatile switch hitters. So it just works out extraordinarily well, and I'll let Lisa talk a little bit about why French is the right language to add and not one of the other many languages we could add, German, Chinese, whatever. But I'd like to invite Lisa up to come talk a little bit about it. But it brings me great pleasure. Come on up here, please. So, and I'm sure you'll translate what you say in French.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci. Je vous remercie de nous avoir invités ce soir. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm really excited that it looks like we may be able to bring French back to Nordhoff. It's something that I've been hoping for, for years. And I think it's the right time to think about it. We have a natural transition time when we can, think about adding something in addition to our excellent Spanish program. And I think that we need to, I really think we need to add French back in, because I think it's something that's going to help us to retain and even attract students to Nordhoff. And I say retain, so prevent them from going down to the Ventura district and retain them, here, but also maybe attract the student whose parents were not decided, kind of undecided. Maybe we'll send them to one of the private schools up here. Oh, but, I hear that they have a new French program and they've always wanted to take French. So why don't we try Nordhoff? Nordhoff is free, versus thousands of dollars. And I've heard about that Health Science Academy, and I think there's a great music program, and I heard about dance and all these other wonderful things. If we can offer, as many electives as we can, I think we can compete better against Ventura and also against these private schools. So parents are going to think, the the best high school in the valley is Nordhoff. Let's send our kid to Nordhoff instead of somewhere else. So, and then why French? You know, why don't we try and do Chinese or Arabic or something that maybe more people in the world do speak? Well, my answer to that would be, the thing about the other languages is it's more difficult to find someone on your staff that actually speaks those languages, and then if that person should, you know, leave for whatever reason, not that I'm going to, but if somebody, if you should recruit someone who maybe can teach Chinese, if they leave, it's very difficult to replace someone in an Asian language with another teacher. At least locally, it's difficult. So having French is a good idea. And another reason is because we Americans have this continuing love affair with French and France. France is a rather small country compared to many other countries worldwide, so you could say it really has a disproportionate attraction for Americans, and not just Americans, just for other tourists, other people in the world. If you look at where the most international tourists go, you know, of any country in the world, it's actually France. France is number one. After France, it's the United States. After the United States, it's actually Spain. So, you know, we'll have it covered with French, English, and Spanish. And even if you never go to France, even if you never go to Canada, to Quebec, and there's a lot of monde francophone, a lot of French-speaking world out there besides just France. You know, I've been up to Quebec many times. There's West Africa, there's all sorts of wonderful places where you can go and learn. But even if you never go there, just the opportunity to take a different language, to learn about a different culture, I think is a really important one. If you just stay in your little community your whole life, you know, it'll open up this whole world to you, even if you never even get the chance to go there. And one thing I see in the classes that I teach a lot of the basic level classes in science. I teach intro to bio. I see more and more I have students who are Spanish speakers. So when they get to Nordhoff, if the only language that we offer to them is Spanish, well, they already speak Spanish. You know, they could take more Spanish, you know, and maybe they would learn some, you know, more grammatical, technical points, and maybe write it a little better, but they might want to take some other world language. And Spanish transfers very nicely into French. They're both Romance languages. They're both Latin-based. And so, you know, it's an easier fit than going from English or Spanish into German, or English and Spanish into Chinese. Or it just simply doesn't take as much time to get up and going on a language, on a Romance language like French or Spanish, as it does if you're learning Arabic or something like that, if you look at the total time that's required. So you can really make a lot of progress, you know, in high school. And
I was going to join you because I was going to surprise you with something.
Oh.
So you're talking about the value of the language and traveling. So I think maybe to sweeten the pot, the consideration of taking students to France and bringing back a study abroad program. So interested in maybe considering that. I know that you don't have to answer now.
Right now, I would be signing on for French 1.
Right.
Down the line, you know, to add a French 2 and maybe a French 3.
Linda's already signing up to chaperone.
That's right.
I've been to Paris 3 times with former French teachers.
Maybe we could find some,
You know,
willing chaperones.
I would mention real quick that one of the things that I neglected to mention that, and you did as well, is that she has taught medical terminology for many years as part of the Health Science Academy. And walking into that class, it really is another language. She's already been teaching a foreign language. It's just pure Latin, and so that's why she's a fantastic teacher in that regard, because she knows the Latin cognates and all the roots so well. So just an incredible, as you can tell, passionate, very skilled, very experienced French teacher who might take students to France at some point.
I like the question.
Nonetheless, but I thought I'd clear that up.
I would actually like to point out my son's a history major in college, and he is finding that a lot of the things are translated from Latin into French.
Oh, really?
So he's considering learning French so that he can look, if his Latin is limited, then the French not only allows you to travel and learn that culture, but also a lot of things are
Typically,
translated.
master's programs in history require either Spanish or French to look at primary source documents. And so a great fit for a variety of academic pursuits.
Yeah, it's a good one to learn, and I've actually met people in Europe because I've studied abroad quite a bit. I mean, if you're a French major and you've got another degree in French, and then you're teaching French, then it's a good excuse to go to different places and do language programs and things like that. So I've actually met people in Europe from other countries that go and learn French because they want to study at the Institut Pasteur, which is a world-renowned medical institute, that's centered in France. So there's good reasons, there's the gastronomy, the food, the wines, the vin, there's art, there's music, there's fashion. I think that's why people are fascinated with French as a language. And there's so many other languages in the world, but I think that's why so many schools keep coming back to French. So.
Any questions for Lisa before she sits down?
I know I said I wasn't going to talk so much about minor arts, but we're known as a second language school. We also have families at our school that French is we have a few this year that French is their first language, and Mandarin is their first language. So I don't know if people know that about our school. Yes, we have several. Red light, red light. But that's interesting. I mean, we have
I didn't know that.
See? We have families from France, from Belgium. Yes.
Well,
See that?
that's why I think that
They're coming
we
up.
should be considering your school for some kind of bilingual program because they
Third grade is available for big buddies and French.
Well,
Right there.
It's interesting how much of the world speaks French. I mean, really, I was just in Haiti in January,
sure.
and majority of the people there speak French. And a couple of years ago, I was in Niger, and they speak French there too. So it's really astonishing how prevalent that particular language is. And these are folks that didn't speak English. So I think it is useful in many ways that we never know. When you learn another language, that's the opportunity that you're giving yourself. So, all right, sorry, I didn't mean to.
I have questions for Greg, but not for, go ahead.
The last thing that I neglected to mention was this is also a result of surveying our students, and so the interest is there. So it's not like we're inventing a program and if you build it, they will come, but the interest absolutely is there. That was a part of our research.
Greg,
Well, that
before
was
you
actually
finish,
my question.
Kim's here. I'm sure you have something to add. You always offer
Well,
something
really, it's all been
interesting.
beautifully stated,
Yeah.
and all I can say is that I know that parents will be very receptive. I know from fielding phone calls from parents over the years, there's definitely a desire to see an additional language return to our slate of offerings.
Okay,
It'll be positive, without a doubt.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's okay. So I wanted to get actually into that, those responses and the inquiries. And so you had mentioned that you had 15 responses from 8th graders that would be interested in taking it, and at least 10 that are at Nordhoff already who would take it as a first language. So I'm looking at a class of at least 25. And I was wondering, how does that affect the average Spanish class of 37?
Right.
And then also how it will progress. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, so next year, I'd like to compare it, right now we have 2 Spanish teachers and they're teaching 4 sections. And can you just sort of show me the?
Yes. I think first, we had a 1 section, so 35 student increase in Spanish enrollments for next year compared with this year. And that was likely due to the PE policy change. So students have more flexibility with their, freshman students have more flexibility with their schedule, and very pleased that many of them were choosing Spanish. So we actually will increase 1 Spanish section next year compared to this year. One of the things that piqued my interest initially when I saw that was that, if you have 100 students signed up for Spanish 1, you get 3 sections of 33. If you have 110, then 110, 115, you have to, there's that threshold point where you have to decide, am I going to run 3 big classes, or is it cost effective, allowable to run 4? So that's one of the things that made me think, well, maybe we can have that additional Spanish section that we earned through the increased enrollments as a result of the PE policy change. and then keep the Spanish classes sizes down reasonably low so that all the students get a chance to speak in class every day, which is critical, and add French. So hopefully that answers the question about the numbers. So yes, we added a Spanish section. We could have added even an additional one and had 4 classes on the lower high 20s side. But that's why we surveyed students to try to find out if we had this offering, would you go? And it worked out. The numbers actually work out perfectly. So we're going to have that extra section of Spanish. It'll be a low 30s average, class average for Spanish 1, and then we can add French 1.
Okay, so I thought it was in place of the third Spanish,
No,
that it's in addition.
No. So, it's in addition. So we're going to see a dramatic increase. What's for us a dramatic increase, 2 sections, given our size of foreign language enrollment. I couldn't be more thrilled. So that means that students are choosing to take as an elective a challenging academic elective, as opposed to, certainly we have many students involved in arts, in CTE courses, career technical education courses, but it's always nice to see students who are taking language, because that's actually one of the things that keeps them, UC, A to G, and CSU, on track for applying for college.
Any other questions?
Well, Tahiti and French Polynesia were left out of the mix.
Oh, yeah.
Ivory Coast.
That's enough by itself.
The trip there. Jane, I just wanted to make sure we also addressed, you mentioned about French 2, for example, and we would anticipate offering a French 2 class the following year. And we certainly would like to see that enrollment remain consistent through a French 3. And should it remain consistent, we would hope that we could offer that. I think we'll have to see how things go. If not, though, we definitely we will be recommending to those students a way to make sure that they can earn that 3rd year of foreign language should they need it. The minimum to apply to a university is 2 years. So we certainly will make sure that students in the French pathway have the ability to meet that minimum requirement. So I felt like that was important to say.
Good.
Any other questions for group? So do I have a motion to approve reinstating French?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
We.
Aye. I've been waiting for that, haven't you, Jane?
Okay, so you guys can stay, or you can, I know you have many things to do. So thank you all for your time very much. Okay, so now we're going to move to 7.5.1. And this is our discussion about the Measure J, I'm sorry, I keep saying that, the 7-11 committee. And just to let the audience know, we are not making any decisions at this point. We still need a lot of information. We need to really reflect on the statements made by the members of the Measure J, or the 7-11 committee. I've got Measure J on my mind because I keep thinking about Rose. Anyway, we need to reflect on that. We still need additional information. We also have to have at least one more special meeting, probably more than one. So I know that many of you are here to talk about the 7-11 committee report and their recommendations, and you're more than welcome to do that. But I just want to reassure you that we're not making a decision tonight about anything. So one thing I would like, however, is I would like the board to recommend that we are to approve a May 3rd meeting, special meeting, that will just specifically be about the 7-11 committee findings. And between now and then, we're going to ask for some additional information, which we can talk about now. So is there anyone who's...
I'll move to approve the special meeting on May 3rd.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now so that's going to happen. There's going to be a special meeting on May 3rd, and that will, again, only deal with the 7-11 committee findings. So tonight, we're going to talk amongst ourselves about some things that we need, but first I'm going to ask for the rest of the public comments to go ahead and take place. And so Christine Laforte, is she here?
Oh, she's spoken before.
a sensitive and important subject, so I appreciate all of your due diligence. I'd like to start off by saying my son is an inter-district transfer student from Ventura. Because of that, I was not personally able to vote for Measure J. But having said that, I did do my research into it, and I'm confident that Measure J was not marketed with the intent to raise funds. And once those funds were raised, to then reevaluate if we have enough money to repair all the schools and maybe a school closure. The slogan for Measure J was "Save Our Schools," and that's far from being what's considered. School closures are not going to give the Ojai Unified School District families the reassurance that they need for the support of the community. I feel it will cause hesitation for the community to, want to support a large-scale fundraising measure again. So I would agree with what the 7-Eleven committee has recommended to you guys. I also want to restate what I had stated during a 7-Eleven public comments meeting. My comment was questioned to be unlikely by a member of the board last meeting on the 14th of April. As I had previously stated, my son is an inter-district transfer from Ventura, and we are here in the Ojai Unified School District by choice, and we have chosen Miners Oaks Elementary. If that choice is taken away from us, I can guarantee you that we will not be in the Ojai Unified School District. We've chosen to be at Miners Oaks. So I know that I am only one family as an inter-district family, but I would like my credibility to be considered as me saying that we will not be in the Ojai Unified School District any longer.
Any questions?
I do. I would love to hear why you chose Miners Oaks. I mean, not that.
No.
Well, not that
I think you've heard it loud and clear.
Not that everyone wouldn't choose Miners Oaks. I didn't mean it that. I just, you specifically chose Miners Oaks, and I'm just curious.
Okay, so previously we were in Ventura. It's a very. My son is in kindergarten. He's actually redoing kindergarten for the second time because of the foundation of the school that he was at. And I've done some research into the Ventura School District. It's not all the schools. It was just, the circumstances that he was under. We are honored to have Miss Lapine as his kindergarten teacher.
Yes.
Oh, well, she's a great reason.
Yes. We all wish we could be in her class.
I work in the Ojai community. So I wanted to come up here to look at my avenues up here because of working up here. Once I visited Ojai School District and I saw Miners Oaks, we have friends that attend as well as other locations that we looked into. There was just the warmness, the teachers. I mean, I can't say how Logan has come leaps and bounds from having Miss Lapine as his teacher, and it's teachers like her that are at Miners Oaks that just are so positive, and all the other things that the garden, he loves it. That he's so excited because he gets to go to the Meadows next week. It's just the little things that compile that school together. That for us, it's out of the way for me to go to Miners Oaks, but I'm more than happy to send him there because of the positive learning environment that he's in.
Thank you. Okay, Angie, you're next.
Hi. Well, I know this sounded much better in the car on the way down here. I'm a little nervous now, as usual. But I'm here to speak tonight about the 7-Eleven committee and comments that were made during those meetings. I'm not here to talk about consolidation or reconfiguration. I'm not going to get in the middle of that. So first I wanted to acknowledge the time and the thought that all the committee members put in and the task, to do the task that they were assigned to do. I know intimately how much time that took, and I can tell you I have spent countless hours discussing the 7-Eleven committee. And I also understand that in the heat of a meeting, comments get made and ideas get put out there that you're just talking and you're thinking, but you don't always check yourself as to what you've said. However, I think it needs to be addressed that the idea was put out there that we need more innovation in the schools, and we need new ideas and new things going on. And of course, we always need new ideas. But frankly, I felt it was insulting to myself and my colleagues. I've been here a long time, and prior to No Child Left Behind, declining enrollment, furlough days, lack of salary, you would have seen innovation and inspiration in every school. And I think those things kind of beat it out of us. But I don't think that it's gone. And I know that in every school, we have inspired teachers, innovative ideas, and people who are willing to do that. They're excited about teaching, even if we've been here a really long time. We're all still really excited about addressing children's needs and doing that in a way that makes them love learning and love school. So I just want to make sure that you understand that's still there. We still are innovative, we're still inspired. We don't need an outside committee making decisions about what we should be doing. And that should come from the teachers. And it should come from a grassroots effort to build on their own ideas and their own inspirations, and especially from what they see in the classroom.
Any questions for Angie?
I would like to
Okay.
participate. I've been in a few classrooms in the last few weeks, and I have to agree. I have to say every teacher I have spoken to has great dreams for her class or his class, and that I think there is, for me, coming out of the 7-level committee, nothing, notwithstanding what we still have left to do, that I think there is an opportunity for this district to perhaps let the teachers start making some changes that maybe butt up against what the state is having us do, and push for what is right for our values and our children. And I also think that as the committee did, there is amazing things happening at every school. And I think we have not made the opportunity. For me personally, it was Nordhoff. As a board member, I learned more about Nordhoff than I knew. And I thought, why didn't I know that? I knew a lot about San Antonio. I knew a lot about Topa Topa. I've learned a lot about Miners Oaks this year. Been to Miramani once or twice, Summit once or twice. So those things we need to find a way to share them so that those go on.
Can I piggyback on just one thing
Yeah.
as well? And what you're saying is, a number of years ago, when declining enrollment started, there was this fear that one of the kindergarten teachers was going to lose their job. And so I put it out there that, well, we need to publicize what we do. We do great things. We need to get that out there. And with that effort, we not only retained that teacher, we brought in 14 kids to our district just by saying, this is what we do. We're great. We do this and we do this and we do this and we do this. And I think what Susie was saying is right, is that sometimes we just go business as usual because this is what we do, and we're all overwhelmed with what we've got a great task here. But just publicizing what we do and not changing it brought in 14 kids from schools from people who I believe firmly were going to go to a private school. And not that I don't value the private schools. I think every school has value. But I think we're better. And I want people to know that, and I feel like we should be saying that. So I really think that Susie's right. We need to get that information out there. I don't know how we do that, but I agree. Like, just in 1 year, you've spent time going around, and look at how much you've learned, and look at how much we've all learned about Miners Oaks. Right? Oh.
hopefully.
Questions, Fran?
Well, just to comment, I think we've been told a lot what we should be doing too, so.
Yeah. Exactly, yes.
So that's been going around.
But that should be happening.
It should be. We're all for it. Keep it coming.
Yeah, it's contagious. All right, thank you. Gina, and I apologize if Braget, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Braggett.
Braggett, okay, thank you.
I wish. I'm Gina Braggett. I'm the president-elect for next year's Miners X PTA. And, I have my little speech here. I did a lot of talking at all the 7-Eleven meetings, so I hope you guys listen to that, because I don't think I can come every week and do it again. But I urge you to consider the possibility of changing the approach when looking at a solution for the budgetary concerns that we have. And rather than closing a school because of dropping enrollment, we should discuss ways to increase enrollment, such as the fostering new partnerships that everybody keeps talking about. Right now, Miners Oaks is already functioning on so many levels as a resilient school, and I agree with, I think Susie said, we need to market it. And I think that would increase enrollment, like dramatically, I really do. I think it would bring people back to Miners Oaks, and I think we could be the super school. I think in a few years, we're gonna have a waiting list if we can push this. And that's something that we need to do. The garden program right now is one of the great partnerships that we have towards this resilient school with Food for Thought. And we're going to be highlighting it on Earth Day this Friday with a pop-up produce stand in front of the school. Food for Thought will be there helping students sell seeds, plant starts for your garden. We're going to be offering fresh organic produce from our garden, including our campus's wonderful mulberries. Never had a mulberry, come on down and try Miners Oaks' famous mulberries, okay? You will not be disappointed, yeah.
Can we dance around it? Ring around?
Yeah, why not? Why not? On another note, the serious note is that you can't ignore the demographics and economic issues that exist within that neighborhood. And I think that this is a fact that should be in the foreground of any decision made when contemplating a school closure. I would like to remind you that the hardships will be felt so strong within that community and the families in that community. And I also just want to point out the general disregard that I feel you're showing the neighborhood who really needs the most support from the district and from the people in our community. So with that said, please consider what is best for our students, our community, our district as a whole, and acknowledge the fact that Miners Oaks Elementary School is a neighborhood school for the most densely populated area in the valley, as well as the only school, or not the only school, but the school with the highest projected growth rate in the coming years.
Does anybody have any questions for Gina?
I hope not.
I just have a quick comment. I agree with 95 to 99% of what you say, but I don't feel like we've disregarded anything. We haven't done anything yet. We organized a committee and we listened to the report. So,
and I mean, that's from your side. From our side, there is feelings of disregard. The whole interpretation, the non-English speakers had no idea what was going on. And they did feel that way. They felt that they were unimportant. And we held our own meetings at our school where we brought our own translator, our PTA did, and they did. They felt completely in the dark, pushed away, left out. And that's from our side, so that's how they feel. Not necessarily me, I knew what was going on. But I'm the voice of these people.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
Teresa Dutter, our last speaker. Unless somebody else has speaker forms they have a hand raised. Pass those.
Yeah.
Hello again. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for wading through what I know the 7-Eleven committee took a lot of time and energy to get through a lot of information, and I know you're going to carefully consider all of their suggestions. I was very pleased and relieved that they suggested that all schools stay open at this time. So a couple of things that I would like to just reiterate is that please do look carefully at their recommendation to keep all schools open, as well as to look at repurposing the district office, since that is a a repeated recommendation coming from the previous 7-Eleven committee as well as the more recent one.
Can you speak up, Mrs. Tutter? Sorry.
I really need my microphone. So those two things I encourage you to keep in mind. And then just to reiterate that the small schools play such an important part in our community, and it can't be understated or overstated how important they are to have that small school option. The relief that families find in finding the right fit for their child is so important. And then lastly, what I want to do is touch on the fact that the core problem we have financially is due to our declining enrollment. And we've considered had a lot of different suggestions come up as to how to address that. But one thing that I haven't heard in this venue is that the short-term rentals that are coming up everywhere here in Ojai that have directly affected some of my school families when they've been forced to move over spring break because they've been kicked out of their rental and the owner is converting it into a short-term rental instead of long-term rental for families. It's forcing our young families who can't afford to buy a house, they can't even afford to find something to rent because these short-term rentals are taking up that population of rental housing. So what I'd like to suggest is for the school district to potentially establish communication with the city council to further that discussion, because that is one of the core problems that we have is affordable housing for our families. We're going to continue to lose families. I think the whole state is declining in enrollment in one way or another, but I do see that our families are directly impacted by the cost of housing and the inability to find appropriate rentals. So there's a school or a city council meeting, I think next Tuesday, and I'm going to broach that same subject with them because I'm highly concerned after learning that some of my families had to move for that very reason and they had trouble finding another rental.
This spring break? Because the city was actually ruling the opposite way. They're cutting out short-term rentals.
That's outside the city limits.
Well, it's a problem that's affecting our whole valley. You know, there's the city proper and then there's the large community.
Outside city limits.
But I know it's a subject that has directly impacted some of my families. They had moved this past spring break to find another house. They found another house. They were so grateful, but they did lose their existing rental for that very reason. So bring more families to this valley. I think that's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for Teresa? Okay, Melanie Marks.
So you guys heard a lot from me as a committee member, but I'm not going to speak as a committee member. It's okay. I wanted to follow up because we had such beautiful stories from teachers and about teachers. And I just wanted to tell my own story about my youngest, starting at San Antonio, who hated school passionately, and who his little kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Brown, just had the time and the patience and the, vision to give him his space and let him kind of free flow through the class and the opportunity. He'd ask her like every 5 minutes, what time is it? When do I get to go home? She just kind of let it flow, and because of that teacher dedication and that personal relationship that she had with him, he is like a GATE student today, 5th grade, San Antonio. Super happy, loves it, and I really want to just take this minute and dedicate it to the teachers of all the schools in this valley, how important they are and how they are so important in each individual, how each school complements, teachers complement, and each teacher can kind of reach a different student in a different way, and had an impact on my youngest's life that will never leave him, never, and it's so important. So I'm here to share that personal story and how impactful it was to my youngest child.
Any questions, Melanie? Okay, so what I would like now is for the board members to suggest to Dr. Bangser and Andy the things that we need to know. What other pieces to this puzzle do we need to be able to make informed decisions about what to do with our properties? I mean, obviously, if we if we decide to close the district offices, where will they go? And how much room does it take? I mean, how much room do we need? How many rooms do we need for Chaparral School? How many rooms does the preschool need? How much space does the maintenance and operations, maintenance and the transportation, how much space do they need? How much room do our groundskeepers need for their equipment? The warehouse, how much space does the warehouse need for its, the things that it has in stock for the different classrooms? How much room does the food services department need? And we need to know what the constraints are for those things. Obviously, we have them located here and they're working fine, but if we, as the committee has recommended, if we really decide to close this space, then we have to go somewhere and we have to have space to do that. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about, like because that seems to be like one of the first things on the list of recommendations from the 7-Eleven committee. How much time will that take? How much will it cost? I don't know if none of you guys in the audience have ever seen our technology hub over here. It's like a death room full of wires. It's terrifying to go in here.
Says the artist.
Something's going to break the minute I go in and breathe on it, So, how much to move that to another space? Chaparral Auditorium. What would we do with that space, which is used so much by the community? There's a lot to go into this. It's obviously a huge decision, one that won't be made while I'm still on the board, but I think we have to start having those discussions.
So those are specific questions, I think,
Yeah.
right? That's.
Written down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then how about you, Mike? What do you think we need to know still?
Yeah, one of the first things that comes to mind, the committee recommended that we surplus subsections of each of the campuses. And I didn't really see, maybe I just didn't look hard enough, I didn't really see what that meant to us in reductions of Measure J expenses. I recognize that we've got some stuff, and if we don't have to maintain it moving forward, that's some savings. But the predominant reason for doing this was to see where we could maximize the money. And so, one of my questions is, the portables, the 4 classrooms at Miramonte, all these things that are listed here as incremental surplus property. What does that do to our Measure J liability or expense for each of those campuses? Does that recover any of that money? And I had another question, but I'll have to come back to it. It's gone.
Yeah, first let me follow up on these two things and then some other things. But with respect to what Mike said, the 7-Eleven committee did talk a lot about getting rid of the portables and some of the other buildings, but I'm just wondering, it seemed like a lot of the time was focused on closing a school. And I'm wondering, in utilization of other buildings, are there buildings on other campuses that we're not using or don't need to use, whether it's Nordhoff, Matilaha, Topa? I don't think we talked about extra buildings at Topa, but have we really exhausted that, and is there a savings there? If we were to close a building, and then if we were not to use a building, are there groups like, it was mentioned earlier in this meeting, OYES or Valley Oak Charter, who might be able to put the funds into refurbishing those buildings that we don't want to use anyway? And would there be a fit there? Is there enough space on any one of those campuses where it would make sense? So that's fine. And then the cost of moving either the district offices or any of the many things that are going on this property. It's been a long time since anybody's been interested in using this property for anything. I'm just wondering if any of those people that we've talked to have indicated that there would be any benefit to us getting out of here before they made a bid, or are we just wasting money in moving, hoping that something happens even though nothing has ever happened before? So I think that would be an important question to ask in moving forward on that. Then my other question that's unrelated to these is, and it was just briefly touched on, I think, in the 7-Eleven committee, but, well, the topic was covered at great length in terms of getting as many students of a particular grade together on a campus. But is there a way we can do that without closing any campuses? For example, to have grade level magnet schools at different campuses. So Miners Oaks is a grade level magnet for ABC grade, and Miramonte and Topa and San Antonio. What would that look like? What's the likelihood of parents being interested in having their kids go to a school that's focused on a particular grade level, that has teachers teaching at high, medium, to teach ESL in those classes and focus on the kids that need those things? What kind of benefits would we do there, and could it work? Those are the kinds of questions that came to me out of the discussions.
And that actually brings to mind what I have been feeling in the last couple weeks about the TKK. I really am hoping that we can, I just think it's be advantageous for those TK students to be in a TK only class, not to be with kindergartners. It's very different what their capabilities are. I mean, imagine a child who's born in September and the child who's born in April. I mean, their capabilities in September are very different. And if we keep them in this TKK combo, they're, in a way, they're doing kindergarten twice, which isn't, I mean, as much as the teachers are making a TK program and a K program, there are some elements of the day where they can't do that. Also because kindergartners are still, if you have children, a group of 5 over there building blocks, I think a kindergartner wants to go build with blocks too. So it makes the whole classroom, I think, the dynamics more difficult, and I think we have so much more to offer. And I know that what I heard from, I don't know if she's still here, Martha today, but that when she has children who came in as TK, the big changes she sees for them when she has them again the next year, and what their capabilities are and how that has grown and how important TK was for them. And so I'd love to be able to, again, I haven't gone necessarily and seen what's the effect of that in 3rd grade or 4th grade. But I know for me personally, I feel that in terms of the academics that are happening right now in kindergarten and 1st grade that are pushing aside the social academics that we need to be learning so that 5th grade students can focus on 5th grade math instead of learning how to have self-control and stay in their seat. I think the sort of from the federal level down, it's been pushing at our students, and I think we're at a point where maybe putting those grades together will help. I don't know, but it would be interesting to see if there's any comments from the teachers about that. I know parents I would probably not have liked that as a parent, because I've got children 2 years apart, so I would have been all over the place.
That was us, yeah. And even if we considered that, the schools might have to start at staggered times to make that work.
Do you have other issues?
I do. Well, one of the things I would like to see in terms of if a school is closed, I know the 7-Eleven committee sort of looked and said, yay or nay on San Antonio, yay or nay on Summit, yay or nay on Miners. But I didn't see, well, if we vote yes to close a school, what does that mean? I would say you would have to look at every school and say, well, if San Antonio was closed, that's this number of 1st graders, so where would they go? It's this number of 2nd graders, and where that affects. If you close Summit and those students came to San Antonio, because that's the closest school, what happens to all those students who are out, from the Miners Oaks area that are coming to San Antonio? You wouldn't have room for all of those. So how would that affect those families? So I think I'd really like to see specifics in the numbers of school A, school B, school C. So not just where those students would go, but how the school that receives them would be affected.
Well, and also like what would a 4 elementary school district look like?
Right.
And what would a 3 elementary school district look like? Those are other considerations, What would happen if we moved 6th graders to Matilaha to make a middle school? Then how much space is left at each school for various things? So.
And to tie into that, there's going to be a cost in shuffling people
in
around,
all of it,
right?
yes.
Even if we let's just for the sake of discussion, say we're talking a 3-school model.
Yeah.
There's still going to be costs, right? So the Measure J money that's estimated for those facilities is going to be reduced. It won't be that full savings. And I guess that's the other thing that I'm kind of curious about. What would be the incidental costs of closing schools as best we could estimate? So that we could sort of see what would the net savings be, more realistic than, just that number off the top.
And I think one of the things I like about having a 5-member board, so I don't want to get too much into this with Kevin gone, is that each of us do tend to bring some knowledge. I mean, Michael, you've been serving on that Measure J subcommittee, so a lot of your information is about Measure J, which is very helpful. But for me, I really personally separate Measure J from 7-Eleven. I don't want that to be the focus. I want the focus to be on the academics of the elementaries and the choices that we make in terms of that. And so that was one comment. And the second comment is, I do appreciate the community and the committee and what they have shared and what they have looked into. But I do know that not all of that information is correct that comes out. And I hesitate to, if someone's speaking, say, that number's wrong. It feels very combative, and I don't like that. But I know at one of the previous, it's much easier for me to look back and say, okay, at one of the previous meetings, I don't know who it was, so I'm going to talk about that. I don't want to specifically do that with somebody who's here unless it's way off. But, one of the things they said, well, with the last bond measure, the money ran out before they got to Miners Oaks. And that's actually, when I went back and looked through it, it's not the school that was, from what I found in the paperwork, it was Topa Topa that got left behind when money ran out. So just know as we go through this, there will be comments that, not for any fault of their own, but might come forward that aren't necessarily accurate. So it's up to us to go through and find out, well, is that accurate, or what happened, or is it related to what we need to decide to do? And I think there is some things that we will weed out as they're not relevant to what we need to discuss.
Okay, so anybody else have anything they need to know? Any other things that are bubbling? Hank, do you have anything you'd like to
I do.
suggest that we find out?
A few things. First of all, a lot of what I'm going to say I've said before, but I think it's more pertinent than redundant, but it is a little bit of the latter. Let me start out with very positive thoughts, which pertain, as I've said numerous times, in writing and orally, publicly and privately, to the work of the 7-Eleven Committee. I think it was extraordinarily good. And not only was it qualitatively high, while there were a few things that were not perfectly accurate, compared with other committees I've seen in my life, and certainly compared to what's going on in the public domain across the nation when it comes to comments and promises and criticisms and all the other things that are out there in the public domain that happen to be political, I think our committee was extraordinarily great. But there will be some things, I agree with you, along the way where we're going to have to clarify, update, and just say, I understand why it was part of that conversation, but when you take that particular sentence or two out, it needs to be clarified. And I did the same thing. I sat, essentially unresponsive, which is not easy for me, for about 96% of the time, albeit occasionally I was asked a question, and one time I did offer a thought, which has gotten some really cool conversations since then. Anyhow, so that's going to happen. In the work of this board and Andy and me and the elementary principals, we're going to be working, as you can tell, extraordinarily hard in the next number of weeks. I don't know when it will end. At one point, I thought if everything fell into place, conceivably the board could make a decision for the 2016-17 school year by the end of June. That may happen, it may not. And from what I can tell, there's no press or pressure from these 5 people, including Kevin, to make that happen. Okay, we're going to do quality work in the time it takes. That's number one. Number two, I want to say something that we've all learned in the last 2-3 months, and that is because an issue is studied and there is the potential for something happening that would be a change in the present set of conditions, it doesn't mean that there will be a change. And I was sort of that lone voice out there back in October of 2015 reminding our very excellent reporters from the Ojai Valley News and the Ventura Star that because you have a committee that you are required to organize to consider the potential of changing the use of your school sites, it is not, quote, a school closing committee. Okay, so now we know by a vote of 7-4 that the 11 members decided that they didn't feel by that vote that a school should be closed. Now it's up to all of us here to think about it. So I urge you to remember that when comments are made here, studies are presented to the board, which Andy and I will do, that because information is being presented, don't infer anything other than it's the number or it's the comment. And I will have some comments. For example, I will tell you that, and Melanie remembers this because she and I had this conversation a little bit back and forth, and then with the whole committee, and then with the principals, that, yes, I do feel I can't necessarily give you the best empirical evidence going back over 30 years, but I can tell you if you're starting from scratch, remember what I just said, if you're starting from scratch and you have 12 or 1,300 students, that it would be better in general, and I think the teachers will agree with me, I'm not going to poll you right now, but in general it would be better to have 2 or 3, not necessarily 4, but 2 or 3 other colleagues in your grade, in your school, with whom to work than being alone in that grade, or maybe sharing that grade with another teacher who has students from yet another grade. Okay, that's our condition. But just because something is technically and numerically better, it doesn't mean that it's the right answer. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that. I promise you. Look at it. That's really one of the things that you'll be seeing on May 3rd, in fact, in response to what Jane said. So here's what's going to happen. Andy and I will be looking at all these requests, and I'll talk about moving the district office last. We'll be looking at all these things that are very reasonable, and there'll be others, by the way. This is not an exhaustive list. And what I promise is that when the agenda is constructed for May 3rd, which will take place no later than the previous Friday, that on our website, which we always do, we'll put up the agenda, and I will also put up any analysis that we've done for that meeting so that you can see exactly what it is that the board sees. And if you want to come and learn how they interpret all of those data, great, love to have you. And answer questions, I'm sure it'll be as interactive as Linda and the members would like it to be.
Will it be in English and in Spanish?
We'll do everything we can to make everything in Spanish, I promise. We're doing,
But can we have a translator here that night also?
We're doing our best. We're doing our best, exactly, okay. So, so that's May 3rd. Now let me just tell you then that what we'll be working on between now and then. When you have 5 schools, and if we're looking at combinations of schools, one of the things that you'll see is just a numerical depiction of what 5 4-school options would look like. In other words, each of the 5 schools closed and students moved to the other X number. It might be all of students, for example, maybe it makes sense when we look at it, if Summit were closed, those 40 students would all go to San Antonio, or not, but they might. Okay. What would that mean for San Antonio? Well, right now, we know that San Antonio has about 155 students. Could San Antonio accommodate 195? The answer is numerically yes, okay, but we'd have to show you, for example, what that would look like. All right? That's the simplest one because it's the smallest school. Let's take the other one. What would happen if Topatopa's closed? We have to distribute 450 students elsewhere. Okay, well, San Antonio can only take another 25 to 50, 40, something like that. Summit could take some, whether people would go up the hill or not, we don't know. There are a lot of assumptions here. So basically, what would happen is those 450 students, most of them, would be distributed to Miners Oaks and Miramonte. Again, a numerical depiction, an analysis. That's the number part. Then there's the critical part, and one of the things I'm asking Andy to do is, and I'll help him on this, but is to call districts around us, because we've never really done this before, and we didn't have any reason to. I want to find out how unique we really are in two ways. If you take our generally 1,300 elementary students this year, we know, because we've done the analysis, that we have over 400 students doing intra-district enrollment. So almost a third of our students are going to an elementary school not where their attendance area happens to be. We also have 140 students coming into the district, about 13 to 15 typically from Santa Paula, and the rest from Ventura, mostly from Oakview, of course. Okay. So what I'd like to find out is how unique are we in that respect? When you call around to some of the other districts, maybe not the 20,000 student district, but a Moorpark, for example, is 6,000 to 7,000, something like that, or Wainimi, about the same size. How unique are we in the construction of our schools? Because numerically, you can make anything work. We can construct 1,300 students in 4 schools, for example, right? And have 200 students or so combined between San Antonio and Summit. But if we close Miramonte, I can show you, because we know this, how many students, inter-district students, and how many intra-district students would have to be accommodated then at Topatopa and Miners Oaks. Okay? Huge assumption. Our speaker now twice right, said, if you close Miners Oaks, we're leaving. Well, she won't be the only one, I assure you. Okay? And we know that we are a home for those 140 students. As I said, 10, 15 or so typically from Santa Paula, the rest from Oakview, because there's a kinship that some people in the Oakview area feel as part of the Valley schools, rather than, right, a great school, by the way. Sunset's a wonderful school, wonderful K-8 school, but feel more of a kinship with the kids who go to school at Miners Oaks, Miramonte in particular, right, and some Topa also, because they do other things with them, right? That's part of their life. It's part of their life. Okay, so we'll make a lot of assumptions, and then you can say, "Well, that's just never going to happen," okay? And then you'll learn from that. So that's sort of the beginning, I think, of the analysis, and you need to see that. Now, as far as the 3 school options are concerned, that's many more, right? And we'll give you the numbers on that too. I guarantee we can't close 2 of the 3 big schools. That's one thing I know we can't do. We can't have enough room for that. Well, I guess we do. Well, maybe you don't even have that. You'd have to have a 750 student elementary school. So that's not going to be on the table, okay? But, we need at least 2 of the 3 large ones, and if we have a 3 school option, one of the 2 others, okay?
I have one more thing.
There you go. That's sort of the beginning.
As part of this, I've loved all the community input, but I think we know that nobody wants their school closed. What we don't necessarily know, or I don't necessarily know, is how important is it to not have combo classes, and what sacrifices are willing to be made to not have combo classes. How interested are you in having you know, a bunch of, more students of a particular grade together? What are the benefits of having some of these magnet programs? Those are the kinds of things that are not so much, you know, like I said, I think if we had a headline every month, we talked about it last time, that we're going to close a school, we would have a full room saying, please don't close our school. It's the other questions that I would love to get input about that really help us in trying to figure out what to do, because we want to serve the families and the students. That's what we're here for.
Just one last thing. And I guarantee you that we will never, ever, I know I won't, I know the board won't, ever put aside the advantages of 5 schools. Okay, it's just not going to happen. We know it, we live it, we understand it. I can give you hours worth of conversation about the advantages of having what we have. So that, if you don't hear that, don't worry about it.
We know.
I assure you, we got it. And I just say one minor negative that we've learned now, and we knew this was going to happen. The largest of the 7 elementary grades this year by far is the 6th grade. Some 200, 225 students. We are not anticipating a very large kindergarten. So we could be looking at 80 to 100, even maybe 100, less, bless you, K through 6 students next year than we had this year. We also think that's about where we'll bottom out. So, you know, that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear that, you know, 1,300 plus became 1,200 plus. Okay?
Can we talk all about, because I had heard that in the past, before your time, before my time, you know, there had been sort of estimates on enrollment that were way wrong. So,
they usually are. No, they are. I mean, I've not had great experience with enrollment estimates. I would never, ever, as you know, the Danika group is the biggest group doing that kind of work. They have good reputation. I checked with some superintendents. I said, how accurate were they? Yeah, they're okay. You know, you can predict high school enrollment pretty well by trends. You can even predict junior high school pretty well. But when you start trying to project elementary enrollment out in 10 years, I think this whole deal about, you know, linking it to the number of births 5 years ago, I just don't have that much confidence in it.
Well, I asked the question when he was here because it was a flat line.
Well, it was.
That's never happened in the history of the world.
But I also have to tell you, I also need to tell you that if our typical group is 140 to 80, I don't care what we do, it's not going to be 240 to 280.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope we could move it up a little bit, but anyway. This lady really wants to ask a question. Go ahead. Yes,
You know, if you're good, just because we have to follow procedure, if you want to speak to us, you have to fill out a speaker form. I'm sorry, and they're in the back there on the table. So, anyway.
I'm done.
So.
For tonight.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to add? Oh, you have a speaker form, great.
Good, good. Well done.
Be prepared.
Hi, my name is Jessica Thompson, and my son goes to Miners Oak School. And I'm sitting over here, and I think I understood Mr. Bangser saying that the number one thing you want to concentrate on as you're going forward is trying to figure out the effects of moving the students, or what will happen to each school, each part of the community with school closure. And that sounds to me like that is very important information to know. I agree with you on that part, but I don't agree with it being the first thing that you need to do. I think the first thing that needs to be done is what to do with that open space, all those open spaces in the schools. So I hope that that is the concentration, is what to do with all that open space. So it seems to me that being here and hearing what everyone's saying and getting involved, I too, like Danika Forrester, have not been involved. I've been very busy with my business, and this comes up, and it gives me really great hope that our community really is a loving community, that we want to help each other out to make our valley really a precious gem that it is, to attract people to come here. And I really do think that that can happen with the publication, the advertisement, the encouragement of how wonderful what each school does offer. So I'm really hoping that the statistics that you need to get first would be what's going on with each one of those buildings. You know, what can happen there first. And then maybe the second right behind that is what happens to each school, what's the effect on the community that happens.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Jessica?
No questions, but that actually kind of ties into me saying what you said about moving here. So if you're looking at closing an elementary school for whatever reasons, it would behoove us to say, well, what would happen to that space? Because we've sort of all said we're really, I don't know if we formally had a vote, but we had that when you were the president, a sort of, you know, we don't really want to sell the property. So what would happen to it, and would it bring any income? And if not, what's the purpose of moving those students? If we can, what we find is, this is what we want to do academically, then say, is there a way to do that academically without closing the school? So that it is an important part of
I just
that.
have one thought on that subject is, you know, this property here is extremely valuable. We all know that. And I personally love the buildings. That space there is, you know, really well used by the community. And I think about John Taft and how much property he owns in Ventura. He doesn't own the buildings, but he owns all the land there. And so why couldn't the Unified School District continue owning this land but leasing the space, or, you know, and I'm sorry if you already know this, but I'm thinking this could then just be a regular income for the school district too. Don't sell the land, but I heard there's ideas about what they can do with the property, with buildings, changing them to something else. That hopefully that will do that for me.
So one more public comment. All right, so Blaze.
Yes.
Bellum, you're up next.
Bellew.
Bellew, okay, sorry.
Good evening.
Yes.
It's my first time in front of you. My son is in San Antonio. It's interesting you were speaking about numbers. And what I think about is what I heard in the market, bonds. You know, you're going to hear everything bonds. And I was told by someone that works at Montessori School that they have the greatest enrollment they've ever seen in the history of that school right now. I know that there's families driving past Summit, San Antonio, Miners, and Miramonte to go to Sunset School. So there's no shortage of kids. And like you said, maybe the numbers are going to get skewed one way or the other with people moving in, people moving out, so it's hard to call. But I would invite you to take a good look at what Oxnard has built in Rio Vista. Those schools should be the bar that we're all trying to achieve, because those schools are state of the art. They built one, I believe, and they're building the second. And I know a family that's moving down there just for those schools. And I would invite you to go take a look at that as maybe a barometer for your future. And maybe rethink, rather than shrinking the rooms we're going to put kids in, but growing a service that more people are going to look at and say, that's really inviting. I want my kid there. So maybe you can grow your enrollment that way. And that's what I'd like to impart to you. Thank you for listening.
Any questions? All right, questions for Blaze? Okay. So if we don't have any, we still can offer, written suggestions to Andy and Hank if we about the subject before our May 3rd meeting. So I think we're going to, this is pretty much the end of our discussion at this day, because we still have a lot of business to cover. So I think I'd like to take like a 10-minute break, and then those of you who don't wish to stay for all the other exciting stuff that we're going to consider, you may leave. We will see you again on May 3rd, probably.